Welcome. You're watching Rugby with Rifle, a podcast about all things rugby and life, with your host, Danny Pabone and Rifle Scudder.
Yeah, it's similar to, I guess, to American football
Yeah,
and Canadian football.
yes,
Canadian football. I've actually watched a few games. I actually went to one game uh, in Calgary, Canadian football game. I was like, "What? Wow, this
yes,
totally
very different.
totally different." So, yeah, so it's interesting. Maybe we could do one episode on the difference between the Rugby Union Australia
Yes,
and what's the other Rugby League?
rugby league. Yeah,
Okay, cool, interesting, very interesting stuff. And the well, not the last thing, but the next thing is the Other Nations series that took place just last month. So this is should be fresh in your memory, Rifle,
yes. So
right?
we just did our last broadcast before Earl and Kevin was on this as well.
Yes. And I remember the one thing about this was spending time at your house, and we watched South Africa and Wales
Correct.
game match. And I remember you stating about Australia winning all their games, and then after that, they lost their
They
last two.
lost. Yeah, yeah. I shouldn't have said that. I'm sorry, Aussies.
So again, Australian fans, please do not hold that against Rifle.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, the end of the year, as I say, you got the North versus the South, and people were going to see once again what they were going to do. Obviously, South Africa just, we won it. We didn't lose a game. And France as well were really, really good. So that's going to be very exciting in next year's, just a month away. We're going to see France and Ireland back again. England also, they lost quite a couple of games, but also just by 1 or 2 points or one try or one kick. They also did very, very well, even though they lost quite a lot of their games. So it's going to be exciting to see England in the Six Nations if they can pull through, and instead of losing by 1 or 2 points or one kick, if they can just click in some other way in a small area and win those games instead of losing by marginal losses. So we hope that they can do that and come through. But it's going to be very interesting to see, how, especially France not having lost yet, phenomenal team, the French, and a lot of young players. So France, their average age low in the 20s. So they've still
Wow.
got many, many years with a lot of young players to go. So they definitely a team to watch. Not losing in the Autumn Nations, they did very well. I believe they in South Africa were the only two teams that didn't lose.
Wow. So I don't know if you know this, but would you say currently at an international level, the French team is probably one of the youngest, you would say?
I would think so, yes.
Okay.
I would guess so. It's just a guess, but I remember because specifically when I watched them playing in the World Cup in 23, people were saying this team is a bunch of youngsters, and we beat them by 1 point, South Africa. What a game! And they're just phenomenal. So you take another, they can easily another 2 World Cups, another 8 years with that specific group. And can you imagine after another 4 years and another 4 years of just playing together, getting to know one another, and just being a very well-oiled machine, how good they are going to be. So I would say that they're one of the youngest, just from what I remember in the previous World Cup, of the average age of the players.
Cool. And to remind everyone, this is not an exhaustive list of the games that were played. These are just the top teams.
Yeah,
Uh, I was looking at the other nations, the full schedule of games. but these are the top teams. There are other teams that played, for example, Portugal, I think, Germany, and other teams in European teams that played in this series. So
Yeah. Two teams to watch that are up and coming and doing very, very well. And I believe we're going to hear still a lot from as they progress and as they keep on playing stronger and tier one nations is Georgia and Portugal.
mm, yes.
Specifically Georgia, they did very, very well. And they definitely up and coming, good coaches, good system in place. They play the tier one nations, so they're playing against the best in the world and they're holding ground. So there you can see the second from the bottom there, they lost to Italy 2017.
Mm.
It's not like they're losing 50-0 or 60-0 against a tier one nation. So Georgia and Portugal definitely teams to watch in future. They're going to become better and better and a force in world rugby, I believe.
Yeah, they fared much better than it looks like Japan. Japan got their butts handed to them in a couple of games.
Yeah, and the thing with Japan, I don't know how much time we have here, but we talk a lot about coaches. Japan's coach, Eddie Jones, who's an Australian, he coached or was the coach of the team when they were at the previous World Cup, and it was a disaster. They didn't even get out of the pool rounds. It was just sad to see Australian rugby, sink to that level. And then he took over. He was England's coach in 2019 when South Africa played against England in the finals. And they were saying South Africa doesn't have a chance. We shouldn't even be there. England beat New Zealand in the semi-finals, and it was, oh my goodness, what a game. And England were absolutely just monsters in that game. They came out and they dominated physically and they took the All Blacks down. And Eddie Jones, was their coach, and people were saying, that's it, South Africa's done. You got Eddie Jones, and England is so good, and he's been there for 4 years now. And then South Africa won that game, and then from there he went to England. Didn't do that well after that. He changed. He went back to Australia, got that position. Australia didn't do well at all. Then he went from there to Japan, and now Japan. So that's a whole other thing now. Eddie Jones is not doing too well in places that he's taking over the national sides, unfortunately for him.
And I think we had mentioned this before in another episode where and this happens in other sports as well, where you have for example, in the NFL, you have the head coach, you have the offensive coordinator, you have the defensive coordinator. Those are probably the top three coaches in the NFL: the head coach, offensive coordinator, and a defensive coordinator.
Yeah,
And you have either offensive or defensive coordinators that are amazing at their job, but then for whatever reason, when they become head coaches, it just doesn't work out
yeah,
for whatever reason.
yeah.
And yeah,
People skills is another thing. If you go
mhm,
and listen to other podcasts and you listen to people who played for Eddie Jones and under him, they will give you their opinion on the man and just his style. I mean,
yeah,
if you look at Rassi, his style of coaching and how he speaks to the players and how he handles circumstances and situations and the way he allows players to question him and say we would rather do this than this, and he allows them to bring new ideas, where some other coaches, it's my way or the highway, and if you don't do what I want, we're not going to do it, and you'll get thrown out. Where Rassi is completely not that way. So people's skills have a lot to do in coaching, in any sport definitely, but specifically in rugby where you're dealing with people all the time.
mhm.
You've got to be able to work with people.
Yes, yeah, that's true. You could be a genius with the clipboard, I like to
Yep,
say,
yep,
meaning join up plays and stuff like that.
yeah,
But if you don't have the people skills, chances are it's not going to work out.
yeah. Your team's going to be lacking.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
Cool. And to end this episode, we just wanted to touch upon 2024 World Rugby Awards. So I was looking at this list, and there's quite a few South African players. So the way I get this is from the World Rugby um, Awards, and World Rugby is the what's the word I'm looking for? They are the FIFA of rugby, correct?
Yeah, they basically the
The governing body. That's
governing
what.
body that comes up with rules, regulations,
Yes,
new things that they're trying to bring in. So yeah, that's what they say they do.
yes, that's the word I was looking for. The governing body of international rugby.
Yeah,
And just looking at this list, I was like, wow, South Africa, South Africa, South Africa. They have the World Rugby Men's 15s, which means 15 players. There's World Rugby where there's 7 players,
yeah,
so that's what the 15s
yeah.
means. And if you just look at this, I didn't even count them. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So half of the team is South African players.
Well, Danny, count how many Irish there are. Look at the Irish.
Oh, let's see. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? Am I missing one?
So I mean, if you take a whole team of 15, and 4 out of 15 is from Ireland, which is a tiny little nation up there
Yeah.
in Europe. That's amazing. That's wonderful. And as I say, the rugby board, chose this team. It's not necessarily, there's a lot of opinions that go into this
Yeah.
team and so on and so forth. So throw a bit of salt in there with
Yeah.
who they pick and how they pick them.
I was just about to say you have to take it with somewhat of a grain of salt. Yeah.
Most definitely, yeah. What I will say, however, is see there the second line, the breakthrough player of the year.
Yes.
They choose, so every year out of all the teams they have the breakthrough player, which is basically the new player, what you would call in baseball a rookie who came
Rookie.
through and did well. Yeah, so rookie of the year. So that's the breakthrough player. And Wallace Satiti, oh my goodness, what a player! They were spot on with that one. I mean, he's going to break a lot of people in the future. He's just a monster on the field. He's really good, well deserving of that. So on that one, they got it spot on. So Wallace Satiti from New Zealand, hats off to you, my guy. Gee, what a player. Obviously a youngster. He's big, he's hungry, he's sharp, he's fast, he's everything you want in a. He's a loose forward, number 6, I believe. So he's everything you want in one of those players. Really, really good. So very, very good to have him there. And then Rugby World Men's Player of the Year, Pieter-Steph du Toit from South Africa. Second time he's won it. Also very good. It was surprising that even in the world team that you have there, number 1, Oxenche, he was not even nominated in this. And a lot of people were very upset about that because he is just absolutely phenomenal. In a scrum, I mean, he has won South Africa so many penalties, right there in the depth, in the thick, in the darkness of the scrum. He's taken down guys when South Africa needed to get a penalty that someone could kick over. He went in and he got us those penalties, and he tackles, he's run the ball. So it's not just the fact that he's probably the best scrummer, in the world at the position that he plays, but just even around the ball, running and tackling, he was phenomenal. He wasn't even on the list. He didn't even get there. So a lot of people, not just me being a South African, were very upset about that. And the other thing is that people were complaining about, I don't think there's ever been a prop even on the short list to be chosen for Rugby Player of the Year. So a lot of people were saying that definitely needs to change. But having Pieter-Steph du Toit there for the second time, he's won this. I mean, what a player, you know. No one, I don't think, disagreed with that. There were other players whose names were on there as well.
Yeah.
One from Ireland, 3 from South Africa. But I mean, sure, if you just think about the Rugby World Cup final, Pieter-Steph making 28 tackles against New Zealand and just how he played, and it's just phenomenal. So they got that one right as well. So well done to Wallace and to Pieter-Steph. They definitely deserve those awards. Well done, guys. Then another one that's not on here, and I think we spoke about this in the previous podcast, I think it was before Kevin and Earl, was just the coach of the year. And a lot of people expected Rassie to be coach of the year because of what the Springboks have done, and he didn't win it. They chose the French coach of the 7-a-side team, and they gave him coach of the year. So that caused a lot of uproar in the rugby world. And you can go to different podcasts and different blogs and so on and just hear people's different opinions about that. But the 7-a-side coach from France won coach of the year, because that's what they do at the end of the year at the Rugby Awards. They choose from every single team. They choose 15 players, a team, the best team, and then they choose coach of the year. They have the breakthrough player of the year and then men's player of the year award as well. So that's how that ended with the player awards. But one or two other things here, you know, just looking at the world that 2024 brought to us concerning rugby was Joe Marler, the prop for England, and he played for Harlequins as well. Very easy to see. He's got a mohawk, big guy with a mohawk.
Yeah.
He played.
And I'm sorry, I cut you off. And you sent me a clip of him. I think he was tossed from a game, and he
got a yellow card.
A yellow card, and then he went to the sidelines asking a fan for a beer. So
Yeah.
he's a character.
He's definitely a character, yeah. So he played 95 caps for England. So
Wow.
people were saying, just hang in there. You just need another 5 more to be a centurion. But he said, I can't. My body is just, I can't do this anymore. I just cannot do it anymore. So he retired this year. So that was one of the big things in rugby, is that Joe Marler has finished. He's finished for Quins as well, Harlequins. So all of his rugby is done now.
And
but
to
he
put
was
that,
a character. Say again.
And to put that, because a lot of people might say 95 games, that's not that many. We're talking about international games.
International, just for England.
We're not talking about club games.
No.
He's playing a lot of games. I just wanted to point that out, because some people might say it's 95 games, that's nothing. But we're just talking about international games. That's not including.
That's for England, that he wore the English jersey. Yeah.
That's not including club level games, which is a whole nother level.
No, international for England. Yeah, 95. Yeah. So he retired, and he was definitely a character. So he'll definitely be missed. He did so much for mental health. Speaking about mental health and talking about it's difficult for men to admit that they're struggling mentally and come out. So he battles with that still and goes for counseling and things like that. So he brought a lot of his struggles and issues to light and started speaking about it. And he has his own podcast and goes on other podcasts speaking about mental health and just what rugby did for that, good and bad, and how that played into his life. But definitely a character in the game. You know, you can go on YouTube and you can push in like Joe Marler being Joe Marler for 20 minutes and just watch things that he did. I remember one of the games, while he was lying on the floor, he tied the opponent's shoelaces together while he was waiting for the ball to come out of the ruck. So the guy, you know, things like that. That was just Joe Marler. I mean, he's a character. So I'll say that about the guy. But he's finished at 95 caps for England. And then the saddest thing in 2024 that happened in rugby, in my eyes as a South African, was our captain, Siya Kolisi, who's a black guy, married a white lady, and they got divorced. And her name is Rachel. My goodness, what a wedding and everything that they had and what they were doing. And foundation that they run, and her, also they adopted Sia's brother and sister when his mom died and passed away. They took his grand, sorry, and they still now look after them. But they got divorced maybe a month or two ago, and there are lots of stories and issues. A lot of it had to do with after the Rugby World Cup in 2023, Sia didn't go back to South Africa. He signed with Racing in France. So they had to move from South Africa, go all the way to France. Don't know the language, don't know the culture, living in a place where, it's not main, the city, it's outskirts, don't know anybody, kids, new school. It was just very, very difficult. So if you just think about these players, and you look at their lives, I mean, every single body goes through ups and downs. Everybody has good times, bad times. So one would think, wow, rugby captain of the Springboks, and you've got 2 World Cups behind you. That must be amazing, which it is. But then leaving your home country to go play somewhere else, and leaving everything that you know, and your wife has got to go, and your kids have got to go. Like I say, don't know the language, don't know anyone. You've got 2 young kids. How do you go to a new school, make friends? You don't even speak their language. You don't look like. So, a lot of people are saying that could have to do with it. I don't know, but it was just a very sad thing that this amazing couple got divorced. And for me, personally, it's always the kids that hurt the most.
Mm.
And they've got nothing to do with it. It's not their fault. They didn't ask for it. They didn't want it. They love both parents, but the kids get hurt the most when parents get divorced, no matter what the circumstances are. But the innocence of the children just get battered and smashed around, and that's the saddest of all. So in the year of rugby, I think those are 2 things: Joe Marler retiring in 24, and the Kholisis getting divorced in 24 as well. So I think that's a good look at the year past, and games that happened and things that happened in rugby. And now 2025 literally just around the corner, and 6 nations less than a month away. So very exciting to look at what's coming.
Yeah, it is sad to see situations like that with Sia Khaleesi and everything, but it just reminds you, um, because we get caught up, you, you know, especially nowadays with, and this is no judgment on anything. This is just my view and my opinion, but especially now caught up with social media and everything, and how it seems like life is faster paced. The more that technology develops and stuff like that, uh, you get caught up in, you know, if you become famous or if you become rich, all your problems go away.
Yeah,
And,
not true.
it's just, I guess it's just a trap that a lot of people fall into, not realizing, you know, rich and famous people have the same problems we do.
Yep.
Anyone
Yep.
does.
Yep.
So it's just a matter of putting life in perspective and really, we always say this podcast is not only about rugby, it's about life as well.
Mm.
So, so yeah, it's I'm looking for not forward, but interesting. I'm sure Sia Khaleesi and his now ex-wife,
Mm.
uh, just well, at least for Sia Khaleesi, because I don't know his ex-wife, but I know a little bit more of him, um, just reading about him and learning about him over the past few months. I'm sure, uh, pretty confident everything be all right. So, I pray that everything will be all right. So,
Yeah.
yeah, sometimes life happens and you just got to keep going.
Yeah, definitely. Everyone has their struggles. Doesn't matter who you are, how rich you are, how poor you are. We
Yeah,
all have our ups and downs. So that's what I say. The Springboks now are riding that wave, and we got to enjoy it while they're riding it.
yeah.
And yeah, hopefully the other teams, Australia and Wales, can come back to their former glory, because you need those teams to be strong to have a good rugby. You want good rugby in the world, so we need those teams. But it was a good year for South Africa, most definitely. Teams like France and New Zealand, and just number two, just knocking on the door to be number one again. So next year they're going to try and do that again. So there's a lot of rugby lying just around the corner, and it's going to be an exciting year next year. So looking forward to that.
Yeah. And you just said, I'm going to correct what you just said. You said you want good rugby. Yes, you want good rugby. You just want South Africa to win as well.
Well, isn't that what good rugby is?
Okay. Yes. There you go. So with that, everyone, that was we probably touched the surface of what happened in 2024 with rugby. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. But if we were to touch upon every aspect of what happened in rugby, we'll probably be here a few hours. So
most definitely.
So we try to pick the major tournaments and major news in rugby. So with that, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Rifle, as always, thank you, sir.
No, thank you, Danny. Enjoy it. It's a good to get together and see you again, and hopefully people enjoy the podcast. We'll see.
Yes.
All the best for the new year to everyone.
Yes. Have a happy new year, everyone, and looking forward to what is to come for Rugby with Rifle podcast, and also the game of rugby internationally and here in America. I'm looking forward to that. So
Yes.
Rifle, thank you, my friend.
You're welcome.
Take care, everybody. Have a happy new year, and until next time.
See you in 2025.
Yes, definitely. Take
Cheers,
care, everybody. Thank you for watching this episode of Rugby with Rifle. Remember to press the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, to support this podcast.